A week like this one on the Jewish calendar is heavy and it's holy. We commemorated Yom HaShoah Ugevura, Holocaust Remembrance Day, Holocaust Heroism Day. We recalled the martyrs and the holy ones who perished, and we recounted the triumphant and even where we saw the hand of God in history. And we searched for inner strength, and we asked whether or not we needed to wait for a redeemer or redeemers. We asked, what are the lessons of history that we could draw from and that could elevate our pursuits? And we read Parshat Shemini, a parsha that begins with Aaron taking on the rituals, the national rituals, the central rituals of the Jewish people within the portable tabernacle, which would become the analog for the rituals in our Jerusalem temple, which lead us to centralized worship, at least central for communities in synagogues after the destruction of the temple. And the end of this week's parsha, the transition away from the sacred precincts, away from the centrality of the sacrifices in the temple, away from the priestly vestments and garments, and thinking about another individual who is empowered by God or Moses even to take on the rituals or the religious life of the Jewish people. The end of the parsha, in fact, turns us back to the every individual, to every Jewish soul, and invites and challenges every individual Jew to find a way to become that link in history, that link and central actor in a covenantal relationship with God, and not only feel and sense holiness, but choose to become a holy actor in the world, yet redeemed. Now that's heavy and that's holy. Jews who are observant, Jews who live according to the Jewish calendar, we as a community who hold ceremonies and commemorations, services, and read a full parsha, know that sometimes there are heavy messages to consider and uplifting hopes shared and invitations made through the commemorations we make and the texts that we study and read. I sense that this week as we were online, and yes, I wish we were together in person, but as we were online for Yom HaShoah Ugevura, day of remembering the disastrous evil of steering into the darkness and finding the light, the legacy of all those holy ones who perished, whom we love and remember. Zachor, we did indeed chant memorial prayers after moving music from one of our newer members, Daniel Panner, whose exquisite nigun opened up the gates of remembrance and even tears. And we said El Malei Rachamim, we recalled and recounted those souls of the holy and the pure, whose lights shine and whose legacies we feel responsible for and blessed to continue in our world, despite the fact that we lost millions. Heavy and holy. We have a great responsibility. And then we turned in our program, and Michael Schwartz, the past president of Or Zarua, our friend, delivered an address about the place of recognizing, yes, even recognize the God of vengeance, the God who would avenge the Jewish people and not let innocent blood spill without an answer, and directed us to look at the details of the Allied victory and the miraculous nature of that victory that might not have been. That what if question he pointed to was also a what if question in the annals of Jewish history. What if Assyria had overcome Jerusalem back in the biblical era? What if there wasn't a remnant of the Jewish people left in Jerusalem and left in the Holy Land in order to continue Judaism, the Jewish people, the family of Israel on the face of the earth? The prophet Nahum, Michael explained, foresaw a time that Assyria would be struck down by God, who, yes, will ultimately answer evil. So we pray, and so we read and chanted the book of Nahum for the first time on Yom HaShoah Ugvura in order to amplify and lift the message of the prophet Nahum. Twice we chanted from that book, chapter 2, verse 1. Chapter 2, verse 1 reads, Hine al heharim raglei mevaser mashmiya shalom, hagi Yehuda hagayich shalmi nidaraich, ki lo osif od la'avor bach bli ya'al kulo nichra. Behold on the hills the footsteps of a herald announcing good fortune. Celebrate your festivals, O Judah. Fulfill your vows. Never again shall scoundrels invade you. They have totally vanished. We know that evildoers, plotters, and even murderers have risen against us generation to generation. So the Haggadah said when we sat around our Pesach tables, V'hisha amda, when we said, God, though, who stood for our ancestors, will stand for us again. We expressed that as a hope if we did not see it ourselves in history. And that is why we chanted this book. God, who would at the end of chapter 3 of that short book of the prophets, Sefer Nahum, God who says that the fire will devour you, evildoers. Sham tochlech esh, tachritech cherev tochlech kayalek. The sword will put an end to you. We put our hope and faith that one day evildoers will indeed receive their just punishment, and that it will not have to be at our hands, that God would do such for the Jewish people because of a love and a loyalty, just like a loyalty that was expressed when God heard our cries in Egypt. And that brings us to the heaviness and the holiness and the possibilities and the invitations in this week's Parsha. Shemini opens with the picture of Moses giving the reins to Aaron, setting us on course for a centralized national worship, for a system of rituals, for religious practice that is based at that time in the wilderness in a tabernacle, a center of hope, a center of fire and light, a center where one can bring an offering for expiation or to express gladness, gratitude, the desire for peace. We need our unique ritual in the world as a Jewish people and those who are expert in it in order to create and preserve a culture, to grant people a religious pursuit in life that they are helped through with guides and shepherds like Moses and then Aaron. But official clothes of the high priest and unique rituals within inner sacred precincts are not the only way that you are invited, everyday Jewish people, to sanctify yourselves, to achieve holiness in life, to be part of the solution, to bring goodness to the world, and to answer all that seems awry. The end of the Parsha moves us out of sacred inner precincts where only Kohanim can make religious ceremony and ritual and drive the practices forward, engage in this unique cultural experience of Jewish ritual life. The Parsha moves us out of those inner sanctums and into the holy situations and the holy spaces of Jewish homes, Jewish hearts, and every individual Jewish life. The Torah describes God's list of what's on the menu. The invitation is, after you hear all about the sacrifices, to make succulent meals out of that which is permitted to you, out of those animals that are kosher for the menu. There are impure animals. There are those that are creeping and crawling and who don't meet the standards of what God asks you to eat. And why does God ask you to eat as such? Not because it brings any great measure of redemption to choose the right meal at the right time of the right bird or the right behemoth, the right beast, but because each and every choice we make links us to the God of Israel, who wants us to use our powers of decision-making and choice and creativity for holy purposes. God says you can be holy by, yes, even through the culinary choices you make, the dietary practices you commit to, you can be holy. And the Torah explains, when God is done giving us the list of permitted animals, v'hit kadishtem, v'hiyitem kedoshim. Using the reflexive verb, the hitpa'el form, you make the conscious decision to raise yourself in holiness. V'hiyitem kedoshim, and you shall be holy, not only in and by what you eat, but the more you discipline yourself, the more you choose what is permitted to you and sanctify yourself through it, the more you will recognize the holy attributes of God and then what holiness you can help manifest in the world. God says this will allow you to live an elevated life, an elevated spiritual life. And that's why the verse in 45, according to Rashi, uses a unique verb used only once to describe God taking us out of Egypt. Ki ani Adonai hama'alei etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. Interesting choice of verb. I brought you up from the land of Egypt. Rashi will say and teach, B'chulan kativ hotzeti. When God describes taking us out of the land of Egypt, the verb usually used is hotzeti. But here, b'chan kativ hama'aleh. Here it's written, I will elevate you. I will bring you up. I will elevate your status. I will help you see that you can achieve holiness. Conscious decision-making, how you engage my gifts of creation, how you prepare them for your table, and what kind of holy gatherings you create, meals and beyond. The way we organize our dietary lives becomes, in a certain sense, one way of symbolizing how we might organize our world into what is tahor, pure, and tameh, impure, into what is creative, into what is destructive, into what is a sign and a signpost to recognize that there's a history of release from tyranny and liberation, or back into the darkness and back into what is evil. Every individual choice we make, conscious about our nourishment in our physical bodies, then impacts deeply on our spiritual existence here on earth. Spiritually, it's been a heavy and yet quite a holy week. We've recounted and recalled the loved ones, the millions we lost. We let their light shine and committed to pursuing their legacies and raising each of their lives in our minds and hearts, knowing that we were gifted with being and becoming the remnant of Israel, like our brothers and sisters in the biblical era Jerusalem of the past. Here we are ready, as the prophet Nahum stated, Hagi Yehuda Chagayich. Go and celebrate your Hagim. Go and build a life of holiness. Be together on your holidays, in your sanctuaries, and in your homes. Engage your ritual as Aaron and Moses and Miriam taught you how to offer sacrifices and how to sing, and make everyday individual choices of your own that are the holy choices that you have in front of you. Vahit kadishtem. Through your own free will, choose the sanctified, the sacred. Use your creative powers and engage my world in a way that's kosher, not just in your choices of what you'll eat, but in choices of the menu for life you'll prepare. Hama'alei etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. With all our choices about engaging mitzvot, we recognize that God wanted to elevate us and make us part of this incredible story, generation to generation. And our story indeed continues. It's a heavy responsibility, and it's a holy opportunity. Shabbat Shalom.